Greetings, everyone. I am UDAY SHARMA from the EEE Department of Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today, I'm going to discuss about the topic digital trade. Firstly, let us discuss about what is trade. Trade involves the transfer of goods and services from one person or entity to another, often in exchange of money. Like if you buy something from a seller, it is also a trade. The seller exchanges his product, which is selling to us in exchange of the money. What is digital trade? Trade in goods and services that are digitally ordered and are digitally delivered. Like if you order something digitally, it may or may not be digitally delivered, or it may be digitally delivered. In other words, digital trade is anything that is enabled by digital technologies, whether or not it is digitally or physically delivered. That means the trade revolves on purchase and selling of the products digitally, or which involves digital selling of these products. For example, digital trade would include the purchase and physical delivery of a paper book through an online marketplace, as well as the purchase and digital delivery of an ebook. Supposedly, there is a book. Suppose let us take an encyclopedia, which can be purchased in the form of a hard card, or it can be purchased digitally and it can be sold digitally as an ebook. This can be called as an digital trade. Digitalization creates new trade opportunities and the potential to support resilience in times of disruption. Yet, economics and firms with low levels of digital preparedness risk falling further behind. The share of developing countries, particularly the least developed countries in the world trade, is to increase as predicted in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Actions are needed to take to strengthen the capacity to benefit the digital trade. So suppose like developing countries like India or some of the underdeveloped or still under least developed countries, some are like located in the Africa, which need to benefit from this digital trade. They have to follow uh, they have to if they have to reach the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, the predictions, they have to benefit from these digital trade. The COVID-19 pandemic has made this need even more urgent. Like the pandemic which has struck in the back in 2020 has made this digital trade more and more necessary. People and business necessarily use online means of buying and selling, and global use value chains we have become more and more digitalized. It is now essential for businesses in developing countries to have the capacity to trade digitally. It may be a smaller value or smaller valued company or smaller businesses, or it may be higher valued companies or higher businesses. Everyone must have a digital selling or digital marketplace to present themselves. The pandemic has served to future highlight the importance of digital technologies in supporting international trade. Let us take an example in the pandemic. Many people have started their digital companies, like their small businesses, starting selling their products and started selling their products to the digital media like Instagram or Amazon, etc. This has happened more often and increased in the pandemic times. In 2020, global services experts fell by 20% compared with the 2019. But exports of digitally deliverable services that can be delivered remotely over information and communication technologies, ICT, information and communication technology networks, such as the internet provide proved relatively resilient, declining only 1.8%. That is, the global service exports, the exports of overall globally compared to the hard copies or hard covers decreased only by the 20%, whereas but the digital trades has declined only by 1.8% during the pandemic period. As a result, digital deliverable services almost reached 64% of the global service exports. In this, of the total global service exports, only the digital trades has become 64%. Exports of digitally deliverable by region and country grouping can be seen in this graph. As we can see here, during this starting period of the 2020, the export has increased rapidly. And we can also see here the export value of the product shipped or exported during the time period 2020. It has also increased up to some 3,000 billions of current dollars. From 2005 to 2019, global exports of digital deliverable services grew at an average nominal rate of 12% per year and at a rate of 21% at Asia. The share of digitally deliverable goods in total global services exported has already increased from 45% to 52% in 2019. That is, from the period of 2005 to 2019, there is a vast growth that is around 21% in Asia and 15% overall the globe has increased. The digital trade has increased by 15% or per se 12%. The largest component of digital deliverable services is the broad and varied category, other business services, followed by the telecommunications, computer, and information services. Service types have been identified as digitally deliverable, yet the share of services that is actually delivered digitally is not routinely distinguished. Many services are also often delivered digitally, like most of the times there are online tuitions or online learning coaching classes, which are also considered as services which are delivered online or digitally to the people. Digital order trade. Digitally ordered trade is a subset of e-commerce. In 2020, 24% of the firms received orders online and over 40% of the firms placed orders. That is, if a company, let us take a company, it has received 24% of its total orders, that is a quarter of its orders through digital media or digital market. And it has ordered their products, it has ordered their raw materials or any supplies they needed, 40% through the online. Uptakes vary by firm size and average more than twice the share of large firms still online compared to small firms. Suppose we take an example of small businesses like something the small businesses selling through the Instagram or etc. They have only smaller amount of businesses, but they make businesses through the digital media or digital trade. Suppose if we take the Amazon or any bigger firms, they make twice or morely 100 to 200 times of these smaller businesses. With regard to the consumers, an estimated 1.5 billion people, or 27% of the global population, aged 15 and older, shopped online in 2019. Suppose if you take year 2019, around 1.5 billion people ordered online. In terms of economic value, total e-commerce is estimated to have reached 26.7 trillion globally in 2019. Including both domestic and international transactions. The availability of reliable statistics on the share of cross-border e-commerce is limited. That is, to country or other shipment to the other countries, etc. Cross-border business to consumer transactions are estimated to have accounted to around 440 billion of total business to consumer e-commerce sales at 4.9 trillion. Suppose the 4.9 e-commerce sales is done to the consumer to business, $440 billion is across cross border. That is, from one country to other country, people have purchased 440 billion dollars worth of products. There is a need to agree on methods of the measurement of cross-border e-commerce and to broaden the number of countries that produce such statistics. Like, I want a product from which is originally produced in Africa, but Africa does not allow cross-border trading. So we need to have a measure on the border e-commerce and broaden the number of countries which allows or works or operates across this border e-commerce or digital trade. At the same time, statistics on digitally delivered services trades as opposite to digitally deliverable services also need to be further developed and more widely compiled in order to arrive at complete and robust figures for digital trade to support evidence-based policy making. Like each trade or each total net worth or total market has to be built up. Firstly, they have to be built up. They have statistically to be maintained. They have to be listed above, and they have to particularly constantly they have to be maintained so that we can know how there is a growth in this digital trade to make the further policies to still increase this digital trade to the next level. Digital trade reduces transactions cost, facility preparation in global value chains, and improves markets access and reach. For business, digital trade thus offers significant efficiency gains and competitive advantages. Like I am selling a product in a local way, or I am famous in a local way. I sell a product which is necessary in the local way. Some of the people who are staying far away from us needed this local product. I can sell it digitally, or I can create a marketplace in the digital world for them to buy my product. This increases my reach, and this increases my market area. Growth in digital trade. Digitally deliverable services still account for a significantly lower share of exports in the least developed countries in Africa and Latin America, Caribbean, etc., and other parts of the world. Similarly, while half the population in high-income countries shopped only online in 2019, this figure was 2% in low-income countries. Like if the in the developed countries or overdeveloped countries, 50%, greater than 50%, has shopped online. Or if we take the countries like this, Africa, Caribbean, Latin America, etc., they have shopped only 2%. Only 2% of this population has shopped online. Or suppose they have done the trades digitally. Less digitalized countries are at a disadvantage in leveraging e-commerce. They are also less able to benefit from the resilience of digitally deliverable services trade in response to shocks such as the pandemic, and therefore likely to experience more extreme declines in exports, earnings, and economic growth. As the least developed countries yet to be relieved from the shock of this pandemic, they are again the less of this digital trade, strengthening the capacity of developing countries to benefit from digital trade. Many developing countries need to improve their capacities to engage in and more benefit from digital trade. Ensuring more inclusive outcomes from digital trade requires a holistic and cooperated approach across governments and with stakeholders to formulating and implementing relevant policies, as well as global development assistance. Let us discuss some of the recommended policy actions that should be taken by the developing nations. Education, skills, and awareness. Adapting to the changes in labor markets and skill requirements induced by digitalization requires changes in formal education systems, as well as in public-private skills development strategies. Integrating ICT at all levels of education, embracing industrial collaboration in developing curriculum, and reforming teachers' methods to promote complementary non-cognitive skills such as leadership and social and behavioral skills also helps in uh, developing these digital trade skills. Conducting awareness campaigns to ensure that individual business decision makers and policymakers understands the opportunities and challenges of digital trade. Creating awareness among the people who are unaware of this digital trade or digital advantages and applications of this digital market, they have and making them to ensure that they know how this digital media works. Micro enterprises and small and medium-sized enterprises. Countries need to boost ICT use among smaller firms to enable their effective integration in global value chains increasingly reliant on digital solutions. Ensuring affordable access to ICT infrastructure. Strengthening the availability of relevant skills as well as knowledge of e-commerce and digitally deliverable among business decision makers through training and capacity building. Adapting trade promotions by leveraging online platforms and online marketing channels by supporting business in meetings and digital standard applications in target markets. Regulations of the frameworks. Countries need to establish appropriate policies, laws, and regulations through to this digital trade, promoting the digital economy for development and encouraging the digital entrepreneurship, recognizing the legal equivalence of paper-based and electronic forms of exchange. That is, the information of knowledge or any information that also can be attained or stored in the internet, and making it sure the other countries are also able to have this or acquire this or sustain gain this knowledge. This can also be called as intellectual trade or information trade. Protecting both the buyers and sellers against cybercrime. These are some of the recommended policy actions. Thank you. This is Uday Sharma signing off.